on vinyl community? Welcome to another video with the Record Spinner. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a vinyl haul showcasing all the records that I acquired within the month of May this year in 2022. And we have a lot to get through in this haul. We have some Record Store Day leftovers, Black Flag, Twin Temple, Amyl The Sniffers, and much, much more. It is about to go deep, so without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy the latest finds. Alright guys, we are going to be kicking this haul off with some Record Store Day leftovers. These are some releases that kind of caught my eye when I saw the list, but I wasn't really in too much of a rush to get these releases as quickly as I did with the other releases that I got from Record Store Day. And if you saw my Record Store Day haul video, you know that I picked up a bunch of releases, and I kind of figured that if these were still available down the road in the future, I would get them for myself. And sure enough, I did that. So I was able to kind of scope through the rest of the list and pick up the stuff that I thought was quite, at least notable to my eyes. So starting off with Bad Company Live 1979. This is a double live album recorded at the Capitol Center in Washington, D.C. on June 26, 1979. Features the classic lineup of Paul Rodgers, Mick Ralphs, Boz Burrell, and Simon Kirke. And this was released on CD, I believe, around like 2016. There was a double CD live album of some live stuff from the 70s. There was like 76, 77, and then this 79 show. And they have decided to give this 1979 concert its own vinyl pressing, which is pretty cool. As you saw in the gatefold, nicely designed with live photos and magazine covers. Records themselves come in printed inner sleeves with scans of the multi-track tape boxes, and we have some liner notes talking about the show as well, which is quite nice. And I'm just going to showcase one of the records since it's kind of the same across the board. But this comes pressed on translucent orange vinyl. Comes on that classic Swan Song label. Since Bad Company were kind of more or less Led Zeppelin proteges, basically, since they were signed onto their label. So very happy to have some live Bad Company in my collection. And here is, I suppose, something that can be deemed, I guess, an essential type of album. Not to say that this is a must-have record, but if you have Fleetwood Mac Rumors, you more than likely have this album. And that is the solo album from Stevie Nicks, Belladonna. On this album, of course, you have Stop Dragging My Heart Around with Tom Petty, Edge of 17, of course, the title track. So I figured I would take my shot at listening to some solo Stevie Nicks stuff. And this is a 2 LP expanded version. Of course, you have the main album on 1 LP, and then the second LP is devoted to various alternate versions, demos, early takes, as well as a couple of soundtrack tunes that appeared on film soundtracks around this time frame. One of them being Sleeping Angel from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Absolutely do adore that song. So cool to have this expanded package. Kind of bold of me to get this expanded version, and this is the first time I'm actually listening to the album. So it's kind of one of those things I'm just kind of giving a shot sight unseen. Nice gatefold jacket. And we have a rather nice booklet here, which has a bunch of photos and liner notes, which are quite nice to flip through and read. And I'll just showcase one of the LPs. Comes on a nice sort of custom label here, which is indeed faithful to the original, which is quite nice. And then we have Elton John, the complete Tom Bell sessions. This kind of dates back to roughly 1977. These recordings were made, and then they were ultimately released in 1979. And there was a track on here, I believe it was called Are You Ready for Love, which I think was remixed in the early 2000s and was a really big hit. But this brings together all the tracks that were recorded with Tom Bell in that time frame, kind of in like a sort of R&B soul type of vein. When it comes to later era Elton type stuff, I say later era, and yet this is still in the 70s. For me, like, I would say My cutoff point for Elton is kind of like Rock of the Westies, Blue Moves type stuff. I've never delved into anything really too deep beyond that. It's not that I don't like it, I just have to work my way through it. But I figured this would be a nice little interesting release to have in the collection. And plus, just judging by the sound samples that I heard previously before purchasing it, it sounded pretty good to my ears. And this comes pressed on this very nice sort of pale violet purple colored vinyl with that custom Rocket Record Company label there, which is very cool. So basically, I did get lucky and I was able to score some rather solid record store day leftovers. All right, now we're going to bust into some hardcore punk territory. Not exactly a subgenre of punk that I really dive into too much, but this is an album that I was recently turned on to by my friend slash coworker Patrick, who played this in the store for me, and I immediately loved it upon first listen. This is perhaps the most notable hardcore punk band in existence. They've made themselves a name in the whole DIY punk community. And it's kind of crazy that, you know, for as much as I do enjoy punk, I've never delved into this band's catalog. And I am finally slipping into it. Let's just say that. Black Flag, Slip It In. This was their fourth album that came out back in 1984. Henry Rollins sings lead on this. This album is just phenomenal from start to finish. Kind of works in some more kind of sludgy metal elements on this record, particularly with tracks such as like Black Coffee, Rat's Eyes, Wound Up is great. I mean, the riff in the song You're Not Evil is just so like almost Sabbathy in some places. Like, it just sounds so menacing. And then, of course, the title track is just great. And, you know, with a provocative album cover like that, you know that an album like this is going to be great. But, this is just phenomenal stuff, and now I have to dive deeper into Black Flag's territory because that's how I am when it comes to new bands. You know, I hear one album that I need to hear them all. But that might be a little bit of a challenge because Black Flag stuff is relatively not too easy to come across, especially where I'm at the store. Their stuff is almost impossible to order, and of course, original pressings for their stuff fetch high prices, so I try to hunt down some reissues while I can if, you know, they're still available anywhere that I look. But until then, I am so happy to have this amazing album in my collection, and I'll be sure to fill you guys in on more of my Black Flag journey as it progresses. Alright guys, so here are some interesting variants that I just got my hands on. These are both records that I have in my collection already, and I will explain what copies I do already have, and I will point out the reasons as to why I got these pretty cool additional variants for myself. And coincidentally, these are both albums in the metal vein, and we're going to be starting off with something a bit more recent, and by recent within the last almost 10 years. And that is Ghost Infestissimum. This is their second album, which came out back in 2013. It is also my favorite Ghost album. I just love the vibe of this record. And what I have in my collection is a standard US pressing on red vinyl, comes in a gatefold jacket. And the artwork is a bit cropped in some areas, like they really zoomed in on it. And it also says Ghost BC on the cover, which was just for legal reasons at the time. They no longer have to do this because there was another band called Ghost at the time. But this in my hands right here is a second Scandinavian pressing. It's limited to 2,000 copies, pressed on black vinyl. And as you can see, this is the full uncensored artwork. I say uncensored as if it's provocative, but it's just the full-blown artwork. It's not cropped in or zoomed in like the US version. And aside from that pretty cool tactic, there was also the illustration book inside. Now, when it comes to Ghost artwork, there is always a lavish booklet with individual pieces of artwork for each of the songs on the record, just so it shows you kind of what they resemble. And the US vinyl pressing did not include that. The CD came with it, but not the vinyl. And so when I saw that vinyl copies in Europe came with this art book, I was really trying to hunt down a copy. And sure enough, thanks to a fellow member of the Ghost Deal or No Deal Facebook page, Guy had a copy of this who was willing to part ways with it, and I must have made a good offer, so it's in my hands. And just for the sake of showcasing everything, like I said, it's black vinyl, so I'm not going to pull it out and show it. But the printed inner sleeve does have all the lyrics and some more artwork here on the back. So Very happy to get this other awesome variant of Ghost's second album, as well as my favorite album of theirs, Infestissimum. And then here is something a bit more in the classic territory when it comes to metal. It's funny because I had ordered this record for the record store that I manage. And this is an album that I think should be in print at all times, and every record store should be well stocked with this record because I think it is essential. But when it came in shipment, I did not realize the pressing that I had ordered, and I immediately flipped out and I bought myself a copy. And when it comes to this band, there's no such thing as owning too much of a pressing of any album of theirs from their early years, I should say. Black Sabbath, Master of Reality. This is my favorite Black Sabbath record, coincidentally, because I just showed my favorite Ghost record. But this album is flawless from start to finish. All killer, no filler. It's just a solid listen from start to finish. Now, what this right here is, this is a repressing of the 2016 2LP version. So back in 2016, they reissued the first 3 Black Sabbath albums on CD and vinyl as deluxe editions with the remastered album, as well as a bonus LP or CD of alternate versions, instrumental mixes, different lyrics, things of that sort. And for a while, those 2LP versions went out of print and became very hard to come by and kind of expensive. And at the time, like, I was a bit of a purist in the sense of buying reissues that were faithful to the original artwork. So what I have in my collection already is actually a early 2010s Rhino press, which is also out of print, all analog, sounds phenomenal. And when I saw that it was this pressing with the bonus LP of the various outtakes and alternate versions, I immediately flipped out because I kind of had an itch to get them, and I'm kicking myself for, missing the gun on it. But I might be in luck because this is indeed a repressing. And I say it's a repressing because if you notice on the back, there is the Warner Records label. Now, obviously, on the 2016 version, it had Warner Brothers, but since that is now defunct, it is Warner Records. So this was recently pressed up within either last year or this year. And God can only hope that they do the first album in Paranoid, because I would like to get my hands on those. But as you can see, it's a full-on purple text type cover, because in most cases, the Master of Reality title itself is sometimes gray or embossed. It's just plain purple. Back cover is as is. And this time around, the gatefold jacket features a portion of the original album poster. And just for the sake of showcasing everything, both records come with these printed inner sleeves. And on the back of them are scans of the original tape boxes. And I'll just showcase one of the records as well. This does come on the sort of green Warner Brothers label. But there on the label, you can see it does say Warner Records. And I do have to say as well, I have not done an A-B comparison between my early 2010 Rhino analog press and this. This is more than likely a digitally sourced pressing, but my God, it sounds absolutely punchy. I will tell you that. So if you happen to come across this, do not sleep on it. And the outtakes are great as well. It's a great portal into that recording world of Sabbath. And if you love this record, it'll be an interesting way to hear such a landmark record. And in this case, my favorite Sabbath album. Alright guys, so here are some Green Day upgrades that I got for myself. These are albums that I've obviously previously owned in my collection, but since there was some other notable pressings out there of these albums, I figured it was worth going down the upgrading route. And coincidentally, these are both albums from their mid-90s period. And when it comes to Green Day in general, I mean, I love everything that they've done, but if there's one era that I'm going to go to, it's probably pre-American Idiot. So these are albums that I very much go to often. And first up, we have Insomniac. And what I had prior to this was the 2009 pressing when Reprise did the entire Green Day catalog. But this is the recent 25th anniversary pressing. It comes on this sort of Mylar type of jacket, which is very colorful indeed. When you shine the light on it, it just reflects very, very beautifully. Comes with the main album on 1 LP, which is housed in this printed inner sleeve with all the lyrics. But to kind of give it a anniversary appeal, there is a bonus LP of live tracks from Prague, from the Insomniac tour. Now, the live stuff takes up one side of vinyl, and then the opposite side is given to a etching of the album artwork, which is pretty interesting to see. So pretty cool that they included that nice little extra with this album. And then the other album that I got an upgrade of is Nimrod. Now, same deal. I had the 2009 pressing, which was actually the first time that it came pressed on vinyl within the States. And given that, you know, this album in general has just a little under 20 tracks, it was all crammed onto 1 LP, and you kind of had to crank it to really get some good, you know, volume out of it. But this time around, this is a 2 LP pressing. This originally came out for the album's 20th anniversary, and then they did a repress of it on yellow vinyl, and then they did a black vinyl version, which is pretty much widely available, and that is what this copy is. Overall, nice gatefold jacket with a band photo and all the lyrics. Now, the album itself takes up 3 sides of vinyl, and on the opposite side, we basically just have a standard etching of the Green Day logo from the album. So overall, I think it's a rather smart move that this album was spread across 3 sides. That way you can just get more fidelity out of it. But needless to say, very happy to get these 2 solid upgrades from my favorite period of Green Day. All right, so here is a massive Dream Theater segment. I have been collecting these releases for the past 2 months, I should say, between this month and then the month of April. And I finally just now have a chance to showcase everything while they have not put out anything too new, because they have been churning out these releases so quickly and also in a very time-efficient manner. These are all part of the Lost Not Forgotten Archive series, which is Dream Theater's line of official bootlegs. They are reissuing all the stuff that came out on the Yetse Jam Records label, as well as a bunch of new stuff as well. So, as you can tell, I have quite a stack here that I have to get through, and let's dig right in. So, we have Live in New York City, 1993. This is live at the Limelight during the Images and Words tour. Fantastic set list. You have Metropolis, Fortune and Lies, Under a Glass Moon, Yetse Jam, Take the Time, Pull Me Under. What's cool about this show is that it features an early rendering of A Change of Seasons, which is a 20-minute epic that they would record for the EP of the same name, and it kind of went through a lot of changes, so you can hear it at its early stage with this live release. This was actually, I think, the first Yetse Jam Records release that I actually heard for myself when I was young, so having it on vinyl is a little sentimental, and it's just great to have a full-on live document from this era of Dream Theater, back when they basically gained a hit with Pull Me Under, and that was their only hit pretty much. But just a fantastic live release here. And then one of the cool things that Dream Theater did for a bit in the early 2000s was that they would cover full-length albums live in concert, and these were also released in the Yetse Jam Records line of releases. And one of the albums that they covered is Metallica's Master of Puppets, live in Barcelona, 2002. They just do a whole re-rendering of the classic Metallica record, and it's thanks to doing this album as well as Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast that they kind of got the sort of kick up the arse to do a heavy album like Train of Thought in 2003. So cool to have Dream Theater's rendering of a all-time thrash metal classic, Master of Puppets. Then we go into demo territory with the Awake demos. This is basically the entire Awake album in demo form. The arrangements are very much close to the finished versions on the album. If anything, some of the arrangements might be a bit different in some places, and obviously these are all just completely different recordings. But if you love Awake, you will definitely love this release. It is definitely one of my favorite Dream Theater records. It is just so high up there, and it's great to have a demo version of it, which is pretty awesome. And also, I should say that the Awake demos were also released within Yetse Jam Records, as well as the Master of Puppets release. But this next one here is completely new, and it sort of completes the set, so to speak. Let me showcase why. This is And Beyond, live in Japan 2017. This follows up the first release of the Lost Not Forgotten Archive series, which was Images and Words live in Japan 2017, which featured them playing the Images and Words album from start to finish live. And this release here basically includes the rest of the set from that night. So we have things such as The Dark Eternal Night, The Bigger Picture, Hell's Kitchen, Gift of Music, Our New World, Portrait of Tracy, As I Am, and Breaking All Illusion. So between this and the Images and Words release, we have a full set, which is awesome. And this is all newly released as well, which is phenomenal. So very happy to have the rest of the show here. And then here is a release that I have been anticipating to come out. I knew that they were going to be putting it out. It was just a matter of when it was going to be dropping. And this was one of the Yetse Jam Records releases, and it's probably one of, if not my favorite Yetse Jam Records release. And that is the Falling Into Infinity demos from 96 to 97. Falling Into Infinity in general is a very polarizing album, just in terms of the way that it was presented, what was kind of going on behind the scenes at the time. If you're a Dream Theater fan, you might know all about it. But basically, what we have here in demo form is a total contrast to what ended up on the final record. Producer Kevin Shirley just kind of dissected all the tracks, and the end result is what we have. So this release here is very much truer to what Falling Into Infinity could have become. And there are so many tracks on here that did not make it on the final record, such as Raise the Knife, Where Are You Now? The original version of You Not Me was You or Me, which is just a phenomenal track. Anna Lee, which is one of my favorite Dream Theater songs, Lines in the Sand, Just Let Me Breathe, Peruvian Skies, Trial of Tears. Even some tracks such as Cover My Eyes and Speak to Me that were performed at some of the fan club shows at the time, just never made it on a record, and they are just some beloved Dream Theater tracks here. But the big highlight on this is Metropolis Part 2. So before we got the album that we now know as Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory, Metropolis Part 2 was going to be a 20-minute epic piece, which never got lyrics. They just did a instrumental demo of it, and they figured that they would include it on the record, but that just did not happen. But instead, it turned into a full-blown album, and it's probably Dream Theater's best album. So it's neat to hear the origins of what became Scenes from a Memory with this release. And I am so stoked to be listening to these demos again, because it has been a hot minute since I've last done so. But to keep it in the Dream Theater vein, there is also another release I want to showcase that I got for relatively cheap from Newberry Comics, and that is John Petrucci, Terminal Velocity. This is a album that he had put out 2 years ago, back in 2020. I remember when it had come out, and I think I had a pre-order for it, which I ended up canceling. I just figured that I would check this album out at some point, and sure enough, that time has finally come. And this is a Newberry Comics exclusive pressing as well, which does come with this very cool guitar pick, which has the album artwork. And just to showcase everything, we do have, let's see, what do we have here? We have a nice little postcard, which has a brief write-up from John. Printed inners. The first LP is pressed on this sort of clearish purple colored vinyl. Kind of looks more so brown on camera, but it's definitely a clear purple. And then the other LP comes pressed on a sort of translucent turquoisey greenish colored vinyl, which is very nice. And there is also a rather cool insert promoting some merchandise as well, which is very nice. So between this and all of these, I have quite a lot of listening to do, but it is all going to be superb. Okay, guys, so in general, when it comes to my vinyl hauls, it's usually a case of I get my hands on whatever catches my eye at the given point in time. I showcase it, talk about it, my reason for getting it, and that's it. But in general, when it comes to vinyl collecting, there is that thrill of the hunt, and it's the perseverance of waiting God knows how long until you get a certain piece in your collection. Well, needless to say, in this segment, there are two records I'm going to showcase that I've been looking to get my hands on for months, and it just took literally me checking all of the various distributors that I order from for the store that I manage to see if they were available. And in some cases, there was one copy available, or they just got a small batch in, and I just immediately jumped on it. So, needless to say, I was very happy to get these in for the shop and get these in my collection as well. So, starting off with, and these are two very contrastingly different albums, we have Twin Temple bring you their signature sound, Satanic Doo-Wop. Now, Twin Temple was the opening act for the Ghost and Volbeat show that I caught back in February, and literally, the genre is in the album title. It's Satanic Doo-Wop. Just imagine Amy Winehouse singing about the devil, pretty much. But it was an absolutely entertaining set, and I had been meaning to check out their full-length album for some time. And it's actually funny, before I saw them, my coworker Devin was talking about Twin Temple, and I remember I played this album once, but you know, in general, when I play albums at the shop, you know, I'm not really paying as much attention as I would if I was sitting in front of my setup. So I knew that I wanted to get my hands on this, and yeah, I bought their 7-inch that they had at the show, but I wanted the full length. And sure enough, here it is. Very interesting cover with a woman covered in blood with a goat's head and a cape. Very satanic indeed. It's a very tongue-in-cheek type of concept when you think about it, but it does work. So it is very intriguing. And then here are the two members of the group. And this is on Rise Above Records, a label that Ghost was on back when they first started. And of course, Rise Above does all kinds of different colored pressings of their releases and such. And the one that I happen to get my hands on comes pressed on this sort of violet sparkle colored vinyl, so you can kind of see the sparkle kind of glittery effect going on there. And what's cool with this is that it's mixed in mono, so not often that you encounter modern albums that are mixed in mono, so it's a nice kind of retro kind of feel to it. And even just down to like the fake artificial ringwear around the cover just kind of gives that old school look to it. But super stoked to have it in the collection. And then here is a little slice of twee pop. This album came out in the late 90s. It's a band that I've talked about so much on this channel. It's probably my single greatest music discovery of 2021 when I started getting into this band. It is the full-length debut album of Montreal, and this album is called Cherry Peel. Very much in the twee pop, psychedelic folk, psychedelic rock kind of vein. This was back when Of Montreal was just a trio. I believe this version, though, this repressing, features some overdubs that were done in 1999, and that's been the new kind of go-to version. I have to really compare both the original and the remix version, but needless to say, I have been wanting this album for so long. The label that put this out, Bar None Records, had it up on their website, and I placed an order for it. Months have passed, I've never received it, and then all of a sudden, this became available once again. And my other coworker, John, is an Of Montreal fan as well, and we were both freaking out when it came back in stock. So, very pleased that this is back in, and just, it is an absolutely sensational, whimsical listening experience. Like, if you love mid-60s Beatlesy type stuff, then you will love this record indeed. Features a printed inner sleeve here with some artwork by David Barnes, who is the brother of vocalist and Of Montreal leader Kevin Barnes. And just for the sake of showcasing, that artwork is also on the printed custom center label. So overall, very happy to have this significant gap filled in my Of Montreal collection. And overall, in general, just happy to get two albums that I had been seeking out for some time. Alright guys, so here is a relatively newer band that I have been listening to a lot lately, thanks to my fellow co-workers at the record store that I manage. This is a band that they're all kind of into, and I decided to give them a listen to see what the hype was all about, and sure enough, I was gravitated upon first listen. So I decided to pick up their entire discography, which only consists of 3 major releases. And the band that I am talking about is Amyl and the Sniffers. They are a punk band from Australia. The vocalist very much reminds me of like a punk rock Sherry Curry from the Runaways, and musically their sound comes across, kind of has like some like traces of like Motorhead, and the vocals are almost like an angstier version of another relatively newer band called the Illuminati Hotties. So it's a very interesting combination, but very angsty, very in your face, loud. It's just great, stuff from start to finish. This right here is a sort of double EP release, which features their two EPs, Big Attraction and Giddy Up, which were only released digitally as well as on cassette. So this brings them both together here in this exclusive compilation. And then that was followed up with their self-titled full-length debut. This album is absolutely phenomenal. Just has a great, punk DIY aesthetic to the front cover. Absolutely phenomenal. And then this is their latest album, which is called Comfort to Me, which is pretty much in the same vein as the debut, but a bit more polished in terms of the production, and a little more melodic, I felt, in places. So all around good stuff. If you have not checked these guys out, I advise you to do so because you will not be disappointed. All right, so here are some records that my coworker recently brought into the shop for store credit, and I went through what he had brought in, and I kind of picked out some of the prime cuts that I thought were of general interest for me, at least, and I was able to get these records for a very good, solid, low price. So thank you very much, John, for those. And this record here is, I would say, an album that I would consider to be a collection essential for anyone that has been a music fan of the past 20 years. This is an album that came out around the early to mid 2000s, provokes a lot of nostalgia for a lot of people that grew up at the time when this album came out. For myself, this is a band that I've always liked, but just never went out of my way to listen to a full-length album of theirs, and there's some songs of theirs that I grew up listening to as a kid that stuck with me, and I figured if there was going to be an album to check out, this is the one. So I picked up The Killer's Hot Fuss. This, of course, features Mr. Brightside. Everyone knows that one, as well as Somebody Told Me. Those are like the two big hits off the record. But other than that, I mean, I've always dug The Killer's style. That just kind of came out around that cool period of the early to mid 2000s, where there was a lot of great just indie rock bands emerging, kind of in the vein of The Strokes, Kaiser Chiefs, bands of that sort. So I figured that I would get this for my collection and dig into it for myself. And here is a rather nostalgic album for a number of reasons. Not fully nostalgic, but it's kind of an album that I've waited about 10 years to listen to. And that is Foster the People Torches. And when this album came out around 2011, I was a freshman in high school. And the big hit off of this was Pumped Up Kicks, which, interesting song to say the least, but it's just so catchy. And I always just associated a lot of my early high school years with listening to that particular track because I really liked it so much. And I always said to myself, I would like to listen to that album in its entirety. I mean, early on when I was in high school. And I just never got around to it. And this album recently celebrated a 10th anniversary, and there was a deluxe colored vinyl pressing of it, which my coworker bought, and then he brought in his original copy that came out back when it was brand new. So I figured 10 years in the making, and I'm finally listening to this album. So happy to get some Foster the People in my collection. And then going more in a indie pop vein, this is a band that some coworkers of mine have been talking a lot about. And this is a band called The Beths. The album is called Jump Rope Gazers. This is kind of in the vein of bands like Always and just other things in that sort of indie dream pop kind of realm. I just figured, for a low price, I would give this album a shot. And what's cool about this is that it does come pressed on green vinyl as well. So overall, a very solid sort of mini haul to dig into some fresh listens for the vinyl collection. Okay, so here are a couple of random purchases to kind of round off this monthly vinyl haul. My best friend Chelsea and I, we found ourselves in the Collingswood area of New Jersey, and among the sort of downtown area, which is Haddon Avenue, there's a whole bunch of great, different shops of sorts. And there's a couple of cool record stores in the area, as well as ones that kind of merge into other cities and towns, such as Westmont, Haddonfield, and such. But the store that we went to was Inner Groove Records, which is perhaps the most notable shop in that area. And I've been there many times before and have gotten some great things there. And I saw this on the wall. And of course, that's like where all like the crazy, holy moly stuff is. And I immediately knew what it was. And it was interesting just given, obviously, if you've seen in this haul, I referenced this particular reissue line, and I happened to get my hands on Master of Reality. So just by that alone, you can already guess what band I'm talking about. And it took a little bit of convincing because obviously it was priced accordingly to what it goes for in the market since it is out of print. So I figured, okay, an opportunity is there. But it took some convincing, and I forked out the cash and I got it. So what am I talking about? I am talking about the 2LP deluxe version of Black Sabbath's self-titled debut. This is my 4th copy of this album. This is a record that I simply can never get enough of. And like I said, back in 2016, Rhino had done some deluxe versions of the first 3 Sabbath records. They did CD and vinyl counterparts. The vinyl has become out of print, and like I said earlier, they did a repressing, like a silent repressing of Master Reality. So I'm guessing maybe others will follow suit. But in the meantime, I figured I would strike while an opportunity was there and pick up the first album since it was at the store. So record 1, of course, is the original album, the American version, since it does feature Wicked World. And then we have a bonus LP of various bonus tracks, such as Evil Woman, which was featured on the UK version of the album. And then we have some instrumental versions of tracks, alternative versions, studio outtakes, things of that sort. Does come packaged with the UK-style gatefold with the upside-down cross. And we also have printed inner sleeves here, which have scans of tape boxes as well as liner notes kind of telling a story. And they go all out and they replicate that green Warner Brothers label. And you can definitely tell this was before Warner Records because Rhino was still using the Warner Brothers label. So very happy to get my hands on this 4th version of Black Sabbath's debut. And now all I need to get is Paranoid, and my deluxe Sabbath vinyl set from 2016 will be complete. So happy to get this. And here is another Record Store Day leftover from this past month in April. My coworker Patrick was playing this in the store since he bought a copy of it, and I had never really listened to this album before. I'm aware of the artist, but upon hearing it, I just thought to myself, where has this been? Like, I've never heard this record before, have never encountered it. Why did I wait so long? And I really liked it upon first listen, so I decided to get myself a copy of it since we had a couple left over from Record Store Day. And that is Nick Lowe, Wireless World. Now, I am not a genius when it comes to Nick Lowe, but this is a sort of composite release of both the UK and US version of his debut album, which is pretty cool. The one track that I knew beforehand is the song So It Goes, which was featured in the soundtrack for Rock and Roll High School. But everything else on here is absolutely solid. Just an enjoyable record from start to finish. Comes with a printed inner sleeve, and the vinyl itself comes pressed on green vinyl with black splatter, which is pretty cool indeed. So there you guys go. That is my vinyl haul of all the records that I acquired within the month of May this year in 2022. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead, give it a like, and subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video, and most importantly, keep the records spinning.